Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about management. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I have heard many developers complain that software developers are treated as something disposable or like a replaceable cog by managers. But I find that strange because isn't management typically people who have a background in software development, and shouldn't they then show respect towards other developers? I don't know where you've heard this, but no, management or managers in IT companies, it depends on the manager, of course. So some people do absolutely have prior work experience as software engineers, but on average, your stakeholders, they're not going to be technical people. And this thing is probably the main reason why software why the vast majority of companies, it's not just this, but this is a very big contributor to the fact that most software companies have a shitty code base, because basically when push comes to shove, a non-technical person will not be able to understand why a certain technical decision needs to be made. You have no idea how much time developers spend trying to lobby for fixing legacy code or issues with the code base and so forth, to people who it's like trying to explain a color to a blind person. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And on the other hand, not it's a complicated problem, because on the other hand, the developers that usually try to do this, I mean, I like to say that it's like being a doctor. Your job as a doctor is, of course, primarily to help your patient, but you also have to be able to explain. The best thing is if you can explain to your patient in layman's terms what their problem is and how they should change their lifestyle, or how they need to do things in a different way in order to stay healthy. And the software developer, in terms of technical terms, is a very similar sort of character. If And this is why I've told you many times before that soft skills matter. Soft skills matter. The soft skills are super important, because you're most of the time not going to deal with somebody who understands perfectly what you're saying. You're going to deal with someone who has no idea at all how anything works. And sure, we can have a discussion about whether or not we should require managers to be engineers and so forth, but the world, this is the way the world looks, and in the real world, regardless of how we would like it to work, you have to be able to deal with people who don't really understand what it is that you do. And I think that that is one of the best skills that you can invest in once you have the hard technical skills, because this is one part of the problem, and I don't want us to get to a point where we blame managers and the fact that they don't understand how software works for shitty software. That's not always the case. There are many situations as well where developers are just as big of a contributor to this problem, where you have software developers who either create genius solutions that don't really turn out to be all that genius, or they're really lazy when they shouldn't be lazy, and this is like a really big problem as well. And I've seen this happen so many times where, well, basically the developers just go into relaxation mode, and or they become code monkeys basically. And I've coached a few senior developers on this, where I've tried to tell them, dude, you are killing this company the way that you're doing this, because you're like you whatever the stakeholder asks you to do, you don't say anything. You never actually talk. You don't talk it through. You don't try to explain that this is a bad solution. You just sit there and do whatever they tell you, and you can't do that. That's your role is more important than that. You have to speak up. You have to say that, you know what, doing it exactly this way is probably going to be bad, because it's going to create a lot of results that we don't actually want. We need to do it in this way instead, because that way we're going to actually produce the results that we want. You can't just always do the thing that you're being told to do, because the people they're not telling you how to do your job. They're trying to tell you what they want, and it is your job to figure out All right, how can I build the thing that they want in the best way possible? But if you take whatever they say as a blueprint for how you should do something, then you're treating them as something that they are not. You're treating them as a foreman or an architect. They're not an architect. They are just a customer who is trying to the best of their abilities, explain how they want the system to work. But you are supposed to be the person who tells them if this is going to work or if it's not going to work, or at the very least inform them of risks and alternatives and so forth. You need to guide the conversation. You're the one who is the expert. And if you don't do this, well, there's no wonder that you're building shit, because the architect is not an architect. It's like taking a child's drawing and trying to build a house of pizza. Like you're not doing your job. So what I want you to take away from this is that I'm very sorry to say that most of your stakeholders are not going to be, or well, managers and so forth, they're most of the time not going to be prior software engineers. Their speciality is going to lie somewhere else. They're either going to be pure managers, or they're going to be finance people, or law, or sales, or something like that. They're not going to be tech people, and that is in many cases unfortunate, because communication and understanding usually goes much easier if the people talking are on the same wavelength in terms of expertise. So when you try to explain a technical matter to a non-technical technical person, it usually is a little bit clunky in comparison to two engineers talking to each other. They usually get along really well. But with that said, it's also important for you to understand although that is the reality of your world as a software developer, that also means that now you have to take a responsibility, because you can absolutely do the thing that I see a lot of developers do, and that is to just lose interest in this entire process and just go into code monkey mode and simply build whatever the stakeholder is asking you to build, without any discussions, without asking any questions, or trying to do right by the code. And if you are that sort of person, I truly hope that we never work together, because then you are, if they are 50% of the problem, then you are the other 50% of the problem, because you can fix this issue. And I've seen this by the best developers that I know. They do this. They can make a project a success, and they're making a project a success not just because they are really good in the tech skills. They're also good socially. In other words, they can talk in layman's terms. They care enough to talk to their stakeholders and go through the process of how we're going to deliver this thing with the stakeholder and guide them towards the right decisions. And this works. It's just that it takes energy to do it. And if you don't have that energy, then I really believe that you are just as much to blame for the shitty situations that most companies find themselves in as the people who are non-technical managers. Have a great day.